Please join me in a moment of prayer. Holy Spirit, fill this place with your presence. Be with me as I speak, and with your people so they hear your word. Amen. So, clearly, you all weren't paying attention when I read the gospel this morning. Because when I got done reading it, I said, the Holy Gospel according to our... what do I say at the end? Well, at any rate, you said, praise to you, O Christ. Really? You're praising Christ for all that stuff he said? Clearly, you weren't reading or listening. Because I'm not finding a lot in this reading to go, oh, goody, goody. I mean, Jesus, starts out, and this is where you can follow along if you want to. We'll just look at the headings in your book. I'm on page 3. They're starting at verse 21. Concerning anger. Well, Pastor, none of that concerns me because I've never gotten angry. Really? Concerning adultery. Oops, I think I skipped one, didn't I? No, that was concerning adultery. Well, Pastor, none of us have committed adultery, so that doesn't apply to me. Okay. Concerning divorce. Oh, there's everybody's favorite topic to talk about on Sunday morning, divorce. There's a fun topic. Maybe I should make an hour-and-a-half sermon on just that one verse there. And concerning oaths. Well, none of us make an oath, really? You don't promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Evidently, none of you have ever gone to trial. Evidently, none of you have ever signed a contract, because isn't that swearing an oath? Jesus says, let your yes be yes, then why have you got to sign a contract? I went to the doctors the other day, and they made me sign this whole long thing, and it's electronic now, so they're not wasting paper, like I'm supposed to stop and read that whole thing. And I go, well, what happens if I don't sign it? He says, then we cancel your appointment. I go, well, that's not fair. I'm here. You have to sign that. I go, well, I agree to it. Doesn't matter. You got to sign it. Isn't that swearing an oath? That's what Jesus. And he says, don't do that. So all of us here are guilty as charged, right? And what does Jesus say is the ramifications of our behavior? Not good stuff, right? The one there is you're subject to the damnation and fire of hell. Woohoo! Praise to you, O Christ. Were you not listening? But let's put all these readings in context. 2 weeks ago, keep your Bibles open because we're not done with them. 2 weeks ago, if you go back to the beginning of chapter 5, we have the Beatitudes, right? If you were here 2 weeks ago or you watched the recording, you heard that Jesus took his disciples, or his disciples went up the mountain to be with Jesus. We talked about it was probably just 4 of them, but they went up there to learn about the kingdom of heaven. And so Jesus taught them what the kingdom of heaven looked like, and that's what continues on through verse 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Jesus teaches about the kingdom of heaven. And what it looks like in the kingdom of heaven is very different from what it looks like in the world. And then last week we read verses 13 to 20, where Jesus says, you are the light of the world. In God's kingdom, you are the light of the world and the salt of the earth. And then we continue today in verse 21. Jesus is still talking to his disciples, those people that wanted to learn more about Jesus and Jesus' kingdom. He's not talking to the great crowd. He's talking to the people that earnestly want to learn. And so Jesus tells them about the kingdom of heaven. Jesus says, you have heard of all these laws. And if you read the Bible, you've heard of all those laws. There's 613 of them in the Old Testament. And each one of these is one of those 613. Jesus says, you've heard about these laws. But I say to you, in my kingdom, things are different. Basically what he's saying. You know about all these laws. You know about the things you're supposed to do. And by the way, don't do. But you know about all these laws. But I want to tell you about the way things look in my kingdom. And so how about this for new heading? Because remember, Jesus is teaching. At verse 21, how about this for a heading? Love one another and don't hate anyone. Oh, well, Pastor, I don't hate anyone. Oh, come off it. Yes, you might color it a little different than the word hate, but I bet there's a lot of people you don't like too much. Or let's put it a different way. I bet there's people that you really like. And then there's everybody else. Jesus is saying there shouldn't be a distinction. Love one another. Don't dislike anybody. In my kingdom, says Jesus, love one another. Not just certain few, but all of them. That's what he's talking about. Love one another. Can't you wait to get to these next two? Verse 27, concerning adultery. How about this? Love your partner. Don't lust after anyone. Well, Pastor, I don't lust anyone. Really? Really? I remember back in the 70s, in the mid-70s, we had a president that was questioned about his faith. I think he was the last president ever questioned about his faith, which tells something about our society. But he was questioned about his faith, and this president responded that he committed adultery on his wife. And I remember the interviewer being a bit aghast that not only would this so-called Christian commit adultery, but to admit to it. And he says, yes, I committed adultery against my wife because I once lusted after a woman in my heart. Well, that's a whole lot different than several presidents after him. He lusted after a woman in his heart, and he declared that that was adultery. Oh, Pastor, you don't lust after another woman? Oh, come on now. I remember back in the 80s, you women had posters of Tom Selleck and Fabian hanging in your offices. That lust? You men, we won't even go there. Isn't that lust? Huh? Jesus says, don't do that. Love your partner. Because if you look at another person with any kind of oogling or wishing or hopeful thoughts or excitement, you've committed adultery. And Jesus says, don't do that. Because in my kingdom, you are to love your partner. And we get to the next one concerning oaths. This one probably should say something like, I'm sorry, I skipped concerning divorce. Nobody called me on that. Concerning divorce, instead of concerning divorce, perhaps it should say, love your partner. Don't neglect them in any way. Ooh, that's a little harder to do. Don't neglect my partner in any way, because if I neglect my partner, I've committed divorce. Yep, says Jesus. In my kingdom, Jesus says, you're to love your partner in everything you do and say. I was out at breakfast the other day. I get a lot of sermon material by going to breakfast. I don't need to read commentaries. I just sit in a restaurant and listen. And there was a table of a husband and wife that was sitting next to me, and sometimes I feel like Norm going into Cheers, and I'm going there with my collar and I get all kinds of attention. And the couple was talking to me because they were at the next table, and the husband said some sort of mildly degenerative comment about his wife, meant in fun, of course. And I looked at him and her, because she turned and looked at me, probably wanting to judge my reaction. And I said, well, what he actually meant to say was, I love you very much, dear. And she just smiled, and his face dropped. And he went, oh, yeah, that's what I meant. Love your partner in every possible way, and don't neglect it. Ask, I do anything. Well, how are you doing in helping others not do that? How many of you have ever gone to a wedding? I mean, you went to your own, I'm sure, but how many of you have ever gone to some other wedding? Okay, most of you, right? Okay, do you remember these or similar words at the wedding you went to? Will all of you, or as we've learned, it should say, will all you all, by God's grace, uphold and care for this couple? Will you, the people gathered here at this wedding, uphold and care for this couple? And your response is, yes, you bet your bippy we will, right? And then you go to the reception and you totally forget that you promised that. And in their marriage, when one of them makes snide comments or derogatory comments about the other, you tend to agree with them because you know their partner is, a bozo, basically. You don't help them uphold their commitment, do you? Have you committed divorce or adultery in that way? Yep. You promised to uphold their marriage. And yet you take a back seat and watch it crumble or fall apart, or you watch one of them or the other or both misbehave or say bad things. But in God's kingdom, we all love and support each other in their marriage. It's up to each of us because we've committed. And then the last one is concerning oaths. It might sound, maybe a better title would be, Love the Truth. Don't tell mistruths of any kind. Ow. Don't tell a mistruth of any kind, even like a little white lie? Yeah, because it's still a lie, right? Don't tell a mistruth of any kind, even if you're trying to get reelected. And I'm not referring to any one particular person. We haven't got to go really far. Or, frankly, if you don't want to get even elected, don't tell a mistruth. But even in our own lives, it's just a little white, still a lie. I remember when Linda and I were dating, and it was getting somewhere near my birthday, and I pointed out to her that I do not want, like, or will tolerate a surprise party. And I said, and if you don't listen to me and you have a surprise party for me, I will turn around and walk out. Because what is a surprise party? A consortium of liars. Right? Isn't it? No? So when I get invited to come to a particular place for a particular reason, and it's not that reason, it's a surprise party, that's not a lie. Some of you really like surprise parties, I can tell. So if you tell me, oh, Pastor, would you come over to the office? I'm having a hard time getting the front door open, and you have a whole group of you here having a party for me. That's not a lie? Yeah, it is. That's stretching it. Do not tell a mistruth of any kind, says Jesus. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And the way I explained it to my dear Linda at the time was, I want to be able to trust every single thing you say. I don't want to have to say honest. Growing up, that was one of the, sorry, Mom, you're going to hear this, but I hated it. Are you telling the truth? Dang straight, I'm telling the truth because I tell the truth, period. I shouldn't have to go, oh, I promise I am. Right? Mom, I'm holding my fingers behind my back crossed. Right? I shouldn't have to. Let my yes be yes, my no be no. I shouldn't have to sign a document saying, I'm going to pay you, doctor. I promise I'm going to pay you. I'm here, right? I expect you to serve me, me to pay you, period. Why have I got to sign something? Let our yes be yes, our no be no. One of my dear Linda's favorite things is, and I'm not going to quote what she says because I'm going to get it all bonkers on her. But one of her things that she says about people that she really likes is like, they are what you see. Are what you see. There's no ulterior motive back. There's no saying one thing to your face and saying something to somebody else. Are. And that's the way it works in God's. No deception of any kind. None. Yes be yes, no, no, period. So God's kingdom is about love. About loving and caring. God's kingdom is about people that are in a committed relationship, and everybody helps them to be committed and honoring. In God's kingdom, we act with love towards every single person, even our brother who aggravates us all the time. One of them was paying attention, the other is not. We love each other always and in everything we do. That's God's kingdom. That's good news. In this reading that we have today, that's something to give thanks to God for. That Jesus' kingdom here on earth works very different from the rest of the world. That in God's kingdom we can trust each other in what they say always. The small things, the big things. In God's kingdom we can trust that we love and care for each other in appropriate ways and support one another. In God's kingdom, life is so good because we act with honor. That's the good news of what Jesus had to say in these verses. You've heard the law is this. I say to you, love one another. Cherish, uphold people. Commit to being good. Always speak the truth. And my kingdom says, life. Life. Not as the world presents. Jesus. And for that, we can give praise to you.